Member for Warren Blackwood.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. So I rise to support the motion that this House condemns the Cook Labor government for its persistent failure to deliver for West Australian agriculture and biosecurity. I want to speak plainly and directly about the alarming attitude of this Labor state government towards agriculture in Western Australia. Our agricultural industry can withstand drought, it can withstand flood, it can withstand global market forces, it can withstand the toughest seasons when our farmers are supported. But what it cannot withstand is a failure of advocacy from this state Labor government. In particular, the Minister for Agriculture has failed to stand up for our producers, our communities and the industries that underpin regional Western Australia. The Minister for Agriculture has failed to have a strategy in place to protect Western Australia agriculture and our food security, to stand up for the West Australian live sheep export industry, to take decisive and effective action to stop the spread of polyphagous shothole borer, to protect high production agricultural land from wind farms and pine plantations, and also to defend the viability of small and medium-sized producers. This all demonstrates a lack of importance placed on our food security and agricultural economic success by this Labor government. There appears to be a lack of strategy and planning, specifically for ensuring the success of our growers and our food security. When our farmers are gone, who will feed us all? Let me outline where that failure has occurred and why it matters so deeply to the people of Warren Blackwood and the regional WA, and why it should matter to all of us. First and foremost, let us talk about live sheep exports. This is an industry that has long been part of the economic fabric of regional WA. Sheep producers, wool growers, stock agents, transporters, shearers, vets, exporters, and the entire towns that support these communities, like fuel stations, grocery stores, ag supply stores, cafes, and the schools and other service providers that support the families of these people. Entire supply chains that are tied up to supporting sheep farming and the export of live sheep. Many of these would not exist without sheep farming in those areas. And yet the federal Labor government has moved to ban live sheep exports by sea by the 1st of May 2028. What has the State Agriculture Minister done? Very little. Not a strong defence to protect this viable industry and its communities. Not a meaningful challenge. Not even timely engagement with a federally appointed transition advocate. The WA Agricultural Minister took over 140 days, or over 4 months, before she even met with a person tasked with helping West Australia manage this transition. That is not leadership, that is neglect. It's total disregard. And the effects are already being felt. The confidence in the sheep industry is crumbling, flock numbers are declining, wool sales are decreasing, young people are leaving the industry, local businesses that rely on sheep production are struggling. This isn't theory, this is reality. It's happening now. It's what I hear every week from farmers across Western Australia. Families who have worked livestock for generations are now questioning if they'll stay on the land. When the federal government finally announced a $139.7 million compensation package, the Premier called it a good deal. Tell that to the farmers who stand to lose everything. Tell that to the shearing contractors whose season has been cut short. It's not a good deal when the damage far exceeds the dollar value. And it's certainly not a good deal when the money is going to the wrong people. If we lose our farmers, then where will the food come from? That's a simple question with serious consequences. With local producers growing our grain, raising our livestock and supplying our fresh fruit and vegetables, we will be forced to rely more heavily on imported foods. Food grown to poorer standards than what we expect, travelling thousands of kilometres across the world and vulnerable to global price shocks. We will lose more than just local produce. We will lose the food security that comes from knowing the people who grow what we eat. Once our families walk away, they don't come back, and that land doesn't always stay in production. There's another layer to this issue that cannot be ignored. The live sheep export compensation package appears to favour major processors, not producers or the other businesses impacted. Processors, in other words abattoirs, are undoubtedly a vital part of the sheep industry supply chain. They provide essential processing capacity, local employment and the link between producers and domestic consumers. Without them, the farmers have no market, and West Australians won't be throwing a chop or a lamb steak, a chop or a lamb steak on the barbecue. But with live sheep exports being phased out, the government argues the abattoirs will see increased demand and should therefore receive taxpayer-funded support to meet the increased supply of sheep in coming years. That prompts a serious question. If this shift to domestic processing is genuinely a growth opportunity, why does it require public money to sustain it? If the Labor government truly believes in the long-term potential of this model, their biggest concern should be securing a reliable supply of sheep into the future. And that means supporting the farmers. Because without farmers, there's nothing to process. We are already seeing record high lamb prices. This isn't because of the ban of live export. This is because there isn't enough supply and farmers are exiting the industry. When supply goes down, the price goes up, meaning the lamb will become more expensive for local Australians. If producers continue to exit the industry, as many are now considering, then no amount of investment in processors will make up for the collapse in supply. A viable domestic industry should be able to stand on its own 2 feet, yet we're seeing millions of public funds flowing to large processors to prepare for a supply of sheep that probably won't materialise, while the very people who breed, raise and shear the sheep are left carrying the risk. This is not fair or transparent transition. And it's time the Minister stood up for those at the farm gate, not just those at the end of the chain. Let me now move to another key area of failure, protecting biosecurity. The polyphagous shothole borer was first detected in August in 2021 in WA. It poses a major threat to horticulture and native vegetation, especially in the Warren Blackwood electorate with our native forests and avocado plantations. What began as a chance to contain and eradicate this pest quickly became a race against the clock. We lost that race. The National Management Group have now admitted that the pest can no longer be eradicated, and we've moved to containment. Why? Was it because there was no timely or effective response? This should have been a top-tier priority for the Agricultural Minister. Instead, communities were left confused, support was slow to arrive, and the damage continued to spread. As the state shifts from the eradication to containment of the polyphagous shothole borer, the burden of managing this pest is increasingly falling on local government, industry groups and farmers. Now the state has committed $26.5 million to management, money that could have been better spent on earlier, stronger intervention and eradication efforts. And let's not forget the varroa mite. Industry has been pleading for tighter biosecurity to protect our bees. Another failure that I'll explain, the pressure is growing on priority agricultural land from wind farm developments and pine plantations. We support renewables, but not at the cost of losing some of our best food-producing soils. In regional West Australia, more and more landowners are becoming approached by energy companies. The planning framework lacks safeguards to protect prime ag land. Communities and local governments aren't being consulted with meaningfully. If we are not careful, the very land that grows our food will be tied up in energy infrastructure. That is not a sustainable future. That is not food security for our state or nation. This also applies to land for pine plantations. Farmers are finding it increasingly difficult to compete on land prices as the Forest Produce Commission enters the market with deep pockets to secure farmland for pine plantations. The FPC is offering well above market value figures that simply aren't viable for farming businesses trying to expand or transition into agriculture. Pine trees don't need to grow in prime agricultural land. Look at the Nangara pine plantation in the northern suburbs of Perth. They're growing in sand. This Labor government-backed buying spree is distorting the rural land market. Prices out the very producers who keep our agricultural economy running, the people who are feeding our communities and the world. Instead of supporting food and fibre production, taxpayer funds are being used to remove productive land and agriculture altogether and turn it into pine plantations and wind farms. It's a policy that undermines both farm viability and our state's food security. All of these failures point to one big issue. The Agriculture Minister is not standing up for the viability of smaller producers. Everywhere you look, the squeeze is on. The input costs are rising, access to markets is tightening, regulatory pressure is increasing, land use competition is heating up, and yet there is no targeted support for small or medium-sized farms. No strategy to help them transition, diversify or add value. No clarity around how they fit in the government's long-term vision for agriculture. But it's as though the Agriculture Minister has written them off. But we on this side of the House have not. Because in regional West Australia, these producers are the backbone of our towns. They sponsor the footy clubs, they employ locals, they feed us all. They deserve an Agriculture Minister and a government who fights for them. So let me summarise what I've just outlined. The live export ban, there's been weak advocacy and inadequate support. Compensation, favouring processors over producers and not enough compensation. The biosecurity, there's delayed action, failed eradication. And wind farms, no protection for priority ag land. Pine plantations, farmland lost to overheated property markets. And small growers, no strategy, no support. This is not the record of an Agriculture Minister championing agriculture. It is the record of a minister missing in action where she has been on these issues. Where is she now? If we lose our farmers, then where will our food come from? It's a simple question with serious consequences. Without local producers growing our grain, raising our livestock and supplying our fresh fruit and vegetables, we will be forced to rely more heavily on imported food grown to lesser standards, travelling thousands of kilometres and vulnerable to global pricing shocks. We'll lose more than just local produce. We'll lose the food security that comes from knowing where the food comes from that we eat. Once our families walk away, they don't come back, and the land doesn't always stay in production. We're at the crossroads. If we continue down this path, more family farms will fall, more regional jobs will go, country towns will diminish, and more of our food supply will come under threat. But it does not have to be this way. With a clear strategy to protect West Australian agriculture, and with the right advocacy, the right priorities and the right policies, we can restore confidence and deliver real outcomes. The Agricultural Minister has the authority to lead. She has the authority to protect those industries and those people who work with them, as well as all of us who rely on the food they produce. So I ask the Labor government, make West Australia agriculture and biosecurity your priority. Recognise its strategic importance and do everything you can to protect it, because the people of West Australia deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Member.